3 months ago, I was not in great shape. I was feeling a little overwhelmed at work. I was feeling a lot of just mental stress. Where we are, how we have come here, where are we going from here? Now, how can an ordinary human being build superpowers? It was obviously very painful. I struggled throughout the day. Modern lifestyle where we have this giant food production companies, they need to sell more cereals. They need to sell an afternoon snack. They need to sell all these sugary beverages. Every social occasion is a cue for consuming more enticing calories. A lot of us are used to eating 3, 4, 5 times a day. You are not giving your body a chance to burn fat for fuel. The entire science of fasting is designed around retraining your body to be able to learn how to consume fat for fuel. The world record for longest fast is for 382 days, and today we'll deep dive into science of fasting. Why is fasting so effective? Hello, I am Mukesh Bansal, founder of Mintra and CureFit. Welcome to Sparx. In today's episode, I want to talk about science of fasting. Why about fasting? Let me zoom out and first reflect on the fact that we have recently completed 100 episodes of Sparx. It has come a long way. I remember saying in the very first episode that I want to continue this for 20 years, which will translate into 1,000 episodes. Having done 100 episodes, I am feeling more confident we can continue. But let me talk about why I am doing this podcast in the first place. Sparx was designed for people who want to do big things in life. I really believe that a lot of people who are very ambitious, very driven, but don't have the right tools. Particularly in India, where most of the population is very young, it's witnessing this dramatic transformation of our economy. And as a result, people are getting super ambitious. And I want Sparx to be the place where people find all those tools to be able to craft their journey of large impact. In my mental model, there are 3 layers in which people need to learn about and work on. First is what I call building superpowers. Now, how can an ordinary human being build superpowers? I do think over thousands of years of contemplation, practice, and now backed with modern science, we have very deep understanding of things that compounds into superpower over a period of time. I think fasting is one such superpower. Being able to manage your breath, leveraging it for health is another superpower. Fitness, I've always believed, is a miracle pill. Whatever success I have had as an entrepreneur, I can attribute to my absolute commitment to fitness over the last 30 years and many others. So I want to keep coming back and talk about these superpowers that you can consider building for yourself. And today we'll deep dive into science of fasting and why I believe fasting is superpower. Another set of topics that we like to cover in this is generally deep curiosity about the world, deep curiosity about how economics work. We've had some fantastic conversations with Neelkant around that. Curiosity about history. A lot that happened in history informs what happens today. History sometimes repeats, history sometimes rhymes, and it helps us put ourselves in the larger perspective of where we are, how we have come here, where are we going from here. Deep curiosity about science and technology. We live in a world which is profoundly shaped by technology. AI is an unprecedented technology revolution that is going to change pretty much everything that's happening around us. So we want to talk about what is going on in AI, what are the new trends, how can every listener of this podcast empower themselves to benefit from AI and be on the right side of this revolution that's unfolding. And beyond deep curiosity, it comes about learning how to build things for scale. If you're an entrepreneur building a small company, while there's nothing wrong with this, there are millions of successful small entrepreneurs, but people who want to do big things. If you want to be next Zepto, or if you want to be next Flipkart, you need to learn how to build things for scale. And there is a whole method to doing that. It requires learning about organization, learning about yourself, learning about what does an entrepreneur journey entails, and hence We have talked to many entrepreneurs in the past. Different entrepreneurs and different leaders have different journey, different way of approaching how to design and build things for scale. But those are the three themes I want to keep coming back on this podcast. How do you build superpowers? How do you nurture deep curiosity so you are able to really understand what's happening in the world, and you develop tools, habits, practices to be able to design and build things for scale. What triggered me to do a podcast today on fasting is my recent experience. 3 months ago, I was not in great shape. I was feeling a little overwhelmed at work. I have really not been able to do any significant progress on my fitness for last many years, and I was feeling a lot of just mental stress for a variety of things. One of the tools that I have found very useful for me in the past, what I call grand gesture. Grand gesture is just doing something significant out of ordinary. For example, there was a time many years ago I decided to try to walk nearly all day. I walk for 30,000 days. There's a time in my earlier in my entrepreneurial career where sometime I'll pull all nighters. These are, it's not that walking 30,000 steps or walking or working overnight is going to do anything profound, but it gives you that feedback that you can do something challenging, and it helps you break out of your funk. So with that thought process, I decided to just not eat for a day. No game plan. And in fact, this is on the back of pretty troubled history with respect to fasting. As a health enthusiast and fitness enthusiast, I've always known fasting can be profoundly impactful, but it hasn't come easy for me. Eventually, I've settled into some kind of intermittent fasting diet. But on this particular day, it's roughly 10 weeks ago, I decided that I'm going to try to not eat for 24 hours. Now, it was obviously very painful. I struggled throughout the day. I kept having lemon salt water to keep myself hydrated and have some electrolytes in the body. But somehow I finished those 24 hours and felt amazing. And obviously, the meal I had was one of the tastiest meal for the long period. And I thought I was kind of done with that. But next morning, I wanted to see if I can challenge myself and do the same thing again. I pushed through, managed to do fast for another 24 hours, and then I ended up doing it for next 4 or 5 days. And while it was very, very difficult, but having done something difficult, I started feeling pretty good about mentally, as well as I could feel that I'm starting to get a little more focus in the work. And then I decided to see if, okay, let me, it's not that difficult. Can I continue with this for next 5 6 weeks? Not one meal a day, but more like one proper meal a day and about half a meal. So the protocol I followed was about half a meal at 10 a.m. and a full meal at 4 p.m. And that's it. Not touching any food, anything. Only thing I'll have outside of this window is some black coffee in the morning. And what happened after a couple of weeks, I started to get into ketosis state. What is ketosis state is when your body starts to burn fat for fuel. You start to feel very energetic, uh, highly focused, and I started enjoying my feeling. So I continued for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, I did my regular blood work, which I typically do every 3 months. And when the numbers came back, it absolutely shocked me. Some of the markers I track, for example, my HB1AC, which has always been on the borderline pre-diabetic, dropped by zero point 0.4 points from 5.8 to 5.4. My cholesterol, which is, most of us in India have bad cholesterol, and I've been on statin for last 10 years. It has hovered around 200 mark, but after this 4 weeks of fasting, it dropped to 160, and many other markers. And I was absolutely blown away. I had always read about these things, even believed that there is some power to fasting. But as they say, seeing is believing. Seeing my numbers on paper where I saw dramatic transformation with my many of the markers, and not to ignore the fact that my sleep got better this during this period. I used to get these intermittent headaches, which went away. It was quite transformative. So I said, now I'm on to something. I really need to see where I can take this. So I've continued with that routine for last 10 weeks. I have lost 6 kg. Now, did I really need to lose those 6 kg? Probably not. But it does feel great. I am now at the lightest weight that I've ever been in last 25 years. And the good thing is I've lost a little bit of muscle, but not much. I'm still able to lift as much weight. On the my waist size has shrunk by I think one full size. That also makes me feel great. So I'm super excited. Of just being able to see this transformation for myself. Along the way, I went back to my second book, Hacking Health, reread the chapter on fasting, many other books. There's a lot of great science that today is available about what fasting does to our body. And today's episode, I want to try to convince you to consider fasting as a possible superpower because it can bring about dramatic transformation to your mind, to your body, and to your health. As I was going through my journey of fasting and also preparing for this episode, it reminded me of one of my favorite stories. I came across this story as a 21-year-old when I read Herman Hesse's book Siddhartha. Siddhartha is a story loosely based on life of Gautam Buddha. As Gautam Buddha renounced the world and went in search for enlightenment from a master to master, all kind of ascetic practices, eventually landed up back in the city and he wanted to experience the city life. So he walked up to this merchant and says, "Can you hire me? I'm looking for some work." The merchant asks him, "What are your skills?" Siddhartha said, "I have three skills. I can wait, I can fast, I can think." And the merchant initially scoffed, what kind of skills are these? But he was intrigued, so he hired Siddhartha anyway. And over a period of time, he realized that just by being able to wait, which is being patient, non judgmental, being able to fast, which is to not expect immediate gratification, to focus more on what he needs to do, and to be able to think, which is to zoom out, look at the big picture. Siddhartha was able to make profound contribution to the business. In my own journey as an entrepreneur, I think these traits are immensely helpful. So, fasting, while we are going to mostly talk about fasting in terms of calorie restriction, eating less, but fasting has a profound linkage to our mental processes as well as metaphorically. Fasting could also be many other things and indulgences. People from all traditions and ancient times have leveraged fasting as a tool for journey of personal transformation, for spiritual attainment, and for curing variety of diseases. Fasting has been a huge part of pretty much all cultures throughout the world. Ever since we have written records, there's mention of fasting, including in Mahabharata. Towards the end of Mahabharata, when the battle of Kurukshetra was all done, the lot of decimation, Pandavas finally get hold of Hastinapur and are ruling. And one of the questions Yudhishthir was completely absorbed by: how can I be a great ruler after all this carnage? So he went to the wisest person available at the time, which is Bhishma Pitama, who was still alive. If you know your Mahabharata, by this time Bhishma was on this bed of arrows. He was completely shot through, but still not dead. And Yudhishthira walks up to him saying, Bhishma, please tell me, how can I be great ruler? And Bhishma said, the great place to start on a daily basis, if you can just eat twice a day, fast rest of the day, it'll give you mental clarity. It'll give you a sense of purpose. It'll keep you really grounded on the job of being useful to other people. So your journey of being a great ruler must start as an inner journey, and fasting is a great way to unlock that. Any religion or ancient cultural practices around the world, fasting is an integral part of human societies and culture. In Hinduism, Navratri is one of the most celebrated fasting window. Most people who practice Navratri will fast for 9 days. Some people will eat only one meal a day or two meal a day, one before sunrise, one after sunset. It's practiced differently in different parts of the country, but the idea is it is a ritualized fast with both restricting calories as well as a lot of spiritual connotation and contemplation that goes with the ritual of fasting. In Jainism, there is this practice of Paryushna, which has a very interesting ancient origin. Jain monks will travel around the country, but they will notice that around the time of monsoon, one is travel becomes difficult, and also there's a lot of creatures all around on the dirt paved roads and so on. And in Jain, they are very particular about not harming any being. So what these monks will do, they will just find shelter for 10-15 days in a cave and use that time to wait out monsoons, meditate, consume very little calories, and they realize that that process accelerates their own journey of deepening spiritual awakening. Very soon, other people started to follow what these monks were doing, and it has become a tradition which most adherent of Jainism follows annually, where for 8 to 10 days, people will choose different modalities of fasting. Again, this could be only one meal a day, or eating very little, or letting go of something. At the end of fasting, people will ask for forgiveness for something they've done deliberately or not deliberately. It's a great self reflection, gratitude, and calorie restriction all packaged into one practice, which is quite popular and effective among Jains. Similarly, in Christianity, Lent is a extended period of fasting. This is inspired by Jesus' story of at some point Jesus went to jungle for 40 days and 40 nights, did not eat or drink anything despite many temptation to the contrary. And Lent is now celebrated around the world where people follow this 40 days of abstinence. Now, abstinence can be from food or from alcohol or any other unhealthy habit that you don't want to indulge in, so that you open the way for inner journey. Ramzan is well known around the world. It's a 30-day fasting window where people just eat two meals a day, one meal before sunrise and second meal before sunset. Sehri is the meal before dawn, and iftar is the meal after sunset. There have been a lot of studies where people who follow Ramzan, doctors and scientists have studied, and they see profound change in people's body, mind, stress levels, focus levels. These are just examples from various religions, various cultures from around the world, and there are many. If you go to Japanese culture, Chinese culture, even African culture, almost all these cultures have some practice of fasting which has been ritualized. It has become a communal activity, and it has very strong spiritual connotation. So people are able to indulge in this wholeheartedly, and it does this job of purification, job of shedding some weight, revitalizing the body so people feel energetic at the end of it. Uh, in the past, I've talked about this thing called Lindy effect. What is Lindy effect? It basically means if anything has lasted for X number of years, it's likely to last for another X number of years. So let's say Christianity has lasted for 2000 years. Pretty good chance it's going to last for another 2000 years. Uh, Vedas are around for nearly 3000 years. So one can assume it's going to be around for another 3000 years. It's a basic rule of thumb, but kind of gives you a sense of longevity of something. Fasting is one such practice. It has lasted for thousands of years. It keeps evolving, but so many people, so many cultures, so many religions will not adopt fast so strongly and teach everyone in the family from childhood onwards to start practicing it unless it had profound benefits. And now, fortunately, we know enough about science of fasting to know what are why fasting works, why it is so effective, and why so many cultures take fasting rituals so seriously. While there is absolutely no question that fasting has been integral part of human societies, since ancient times. Let's pause and ask a question: why is fasting so effective? I feel in most things related to health, we need to go back to our hunter gathering ancestry. Just to recap, Homo sapiens, that is our species, has been around for around 200,000 years. If you think 20 year for every generation, that's about 10,000 generations. So it's while 10,000 generations is a lot, it's also not a whole lot compared to the entire history of life on Earth. But most of those 10,000 generations or 200,000 years, we lived in jungle as hunter gatherers. What is hunting gathering? You pretty much walk around all day. If you find some fruits on the tree or some tubers, you collect them, come home, eat. If you're lucky, you manage to corner an animal, kill, and eat that. And that's pretty much how you are going to get all your calories. Now, if you imagine yourself in a hunter gathering lifestyle, do you think food was available 3 times a day? Animal will show up on demand when you're feeling hungry, or fruit will sprout up on the trees because you just happen to have afternoon snack craving? Absolutely not. The food in jungle always was, and even today, sometime it's available, sometime it's not available. Our bodies has evolved to not only survive but really thrive in the environment. Everything our body's mechanism is designed by natural selection to be able to support that hunting gathering lifestyle, which means we eat when food is available. If food is not available, not a big deal. We'll go back to burning fat for fuel and derive our calories from that. So, most of this episode, the key idea behind why fasting is so powerful, in fact, why it is critical, is for us to train our bodies to be able to burn fat for fuel. Now, that was very natural for most of our evolutionary history, last 200,000 years as Homo sapiens. But even if you go to other Homo species before that, for last couple of million years, that was the standard lifestyle. So our bodies are naturally very, very good at that. But then things started to change. First, we invented agriculture about 10, 12,000 years ago. What agriculture enabled is we were able to generate a lot of food because a lot of these crops were grains oriented, which can be stored and last for a long period of time. Suddenly, we have a mechanism where we are not dependent on finding food on a daily basis. We had our own store of food, so therefore we can have more predictable meal timings. But even agricultural societies then and now, people will eat something in the morning, go to field, do hard physical labor for 5 6 hours, come back, have another meal. 2 meals a day was the norm until we ran into industrial revolution about 200 250 years ago. Now, industrial revolution required these factory workers, and the factory conditions were absolutely abysmal. People will work 12 14-hour shifts. Now, if you have to work for 12 or 14 hours, you also need to consume calories, otherwise you will just drop dead. So in factories, the factory owners start encouraging people to have a big breakfast in the morning so you have energy, then take a lunch break so you are fed again, have enough energy to go through the grueling work that's going to come your way for next 8 hours. And by the end of the day, you are exhausted. So you again want to have a big meal. Slowly, this culture of 3 meals a day start evolving. Cut to the modern lifestyle where we have this giant food production companies and they need to sell more cereals in the morning. They need to sell an afternoon snack. They need to sell all this sugary beverage and so on. So they keep creating these needs for us where with this craving, every social occasion is a cue for consuming more enticing calories. Uh, Small break in office is a cue. Meeting room, you want to munch on cookies or whatever junk is kept in the office. And now a lot of us are used to eating 3 4 5 times a day. There are many studies. Dr. Sachin Panda has done outstanding studies on food consumption pattern of people. He has noticed in US there are people who will eat every half an hour, literally every half an hour throughout their day. which may translate into eating 15, 20 times a day. Now, that is absolutely wrong for you. Why is that wrong for you? So, we have only two ways to inject and consume calories. One is we eat calories from outside. You put some food in your mouth, it goes into your digestive tract. Body gets busy trying to digest that food, and as the food start getting digested, you have calories in your bloodstream and you feel surge of energy, but that is all powered by glucose. Very soon that energy is either consumed or ferried away by insulin, and then you are out of energy within a couple of hours of eating. That's where ideally our fat burning mechanism kicks in. All of us carry a lot of fat in our body, so let's do some numbers. If you are a healthy male, you will have something about 15 to 20% of your body weight is in fat. For women, that number ranges from 20 to 30%. That's how our biology designed us. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So for a 70 kg male, 20% body fat is 14 kg of fat. Now, 1 kilogram of fat is about 9,000 calories. For an average person, that is enough calories to last you 5 days. So, just 1 kilogram of fat burning can give me energy for 5 days without having to consume anything outside. And on average, a person is carrying about 15 kg. For women, also, it turns out they have lesser body weight but higher body fat percentage. So, again, they will on average carry about 15 kilograms of body fat. If you just do straight math, that is 15 times 5. So, 70, 80 days of calories we carry in our body. This is a very intelligent mechanism that body evolved for the environment in which we experience most of our evolutionary history, where food was unpredictable. And so we automatically became very good at storing fat, consuming fat for energy. Now cut to modern lifestyle. When you are continuously eating every few hours, you are not giving your body a chance to burn fat for fuel. Body fundamentally works on this use it or lose it principle. Every single body process works according to that. I had a whole chapter in my book Hacking Health around that. So if you're not creating opportunities for our body for burning fat for fuel, slowly it just loses. It's like you have a lot of food stored in a storage, but somehow you lock it away, you throw the key, and when you're hungry, you can't even get 1 calorie out of that. That's what most of us feel. If you're at lunch at 1 p.m. and after 4 p.m. you start to have hunger pangs, because by that time the calories from lunch are ferried away and your body just doesn't know how to tap into stored energy in terms of fat, and you feel hungry and you look for that fruit or a cookie or whatever afternoon snack happen to be available to you. So the entire science of fasting is designed around retraining your body to be able to learn again how to consume fat for fuel. And as you learn, as you unlock that capacity, you start to completely rewire your biological machinery with profound impact. And we have now lots of studies that bear this out. The world record for longest fast is for 382 days, if you can believe it. This is about Angus Barbary. He at some point weighed 456 pounds, probably one of the biggest person around at that time in 60s. Uh, he was very frustrated with the amount of body weight, what it was doing to his health, mobility, social life. At some point, he decided to give fasting a shot. He consulted doctors and designed a mechanism where he was only going to drink tea, coffee, electrolytes. He did this fast for a few days, lost some weight, felt good. So he said, things are going great. Why not just continue with this? And under doctor supervision, he continued doing that. And he did not eat anything, not a single calorie from outside for 382 days. He lost most of the body weight. He slimmed down to 82 kg healthy weight. And eventually, he broke his fast after 382 days, more than 1 year, with some boiled eggs. By the time he had forgotten the taste of food, but he slowly starting eating normally and maintained this body weight for a very long period of time. Now, obviously, that's not something I'm recommending or anyone should consider, but this is just to show how capable our bodies are to be able to have this prolonged fast and yet not only survive but sometimes even thrive. Another example from 1880s is for Dr. Henry Tanner. He fasted for 40 days and crowds will gather to watch him. Most people thought that he will die an early death, but he actually started to feel better and stronger after a couple of weeks of that fasting. Uh, and he pretty much did not consume any calories, lost a lot of weight, and eventually broke his fast with some milk. And that sparked huge curiosity. People start to get really intrigued. What is it about human body that people are able to do this prolonged fast? And that sparked initial interest in science of fasting, which fortunately has been tested pretty rigorously by now. Let's take a close look at some of the studies which opened up our eyes about the impact of fasting for curing diseases. In one such study, Dr. Galen worked with 26 patients. These are children who had these epileptic seizures without control. He, based on some anecdotal evidence, decided to do a very organized fasting. Now, these kids were put on absolutely zero calorie diet, what's known as water only fast, where they were only given water during the day. These fasts lasted for 20 days. After some days, their condition started to improve. The frequency of seizure went down. And after the study was over, more than 50% of kids were completely seizure free. As Dr. Galen was doing his study, he also was testing their blood and he noticed that there is a significant spike in ketones. Now, ketones are this alternate fuel source. When our bodies start burning fat, ketones are produced, and it so happens our brain absolutely love ketones. If you measure your ketosis state, which I do every now and then, and you have higher level of ketones in the body, your brain feels amazing. Right now, I'm shooting this on a fasted state. I have not eaten anything since for last 18 hours, and I feel like very fresh and energetic in my head. I'm pretty sure my ketones levels are high. So that is the first clue that ketones are something which is potentially have a very beneficial impact to our brains. That is what the genesis of ketogenic diets. After that, a lot of people replicated this study, started to understand what is the role of ketones in our brains, and there clearly was a profound connection between level of ketones and how brain self-regulates, hence the potential impact on epilepsy. Another doctor whose work is pretty famous is of that award, Dr. Walter Lango. He recently came out of this book called Fasting Cancer. This is a very illustrative title. We have our own doctor in India, Dr. Luke Catino, which, from what I believe, he practices similar philosophy. So, what does this mean, fasting cancer? What is the relevance of fasting with cancer? Again, we all know cancer is a deadly disease where some part of the body the cells start dividing uncontrollably and keep multiplying, and it becomes a tumorous organ in the body, which starts depriving other parts of the body for the vital resources and eventually can result in death over a period of time. When you What Dr. Walter Longo realized that when you put a patient who is dealing with cancer in a fasted state, now there is a calorie restriction in the body. Cancer cells, which want to replicate, they need nutrients. They suddenly feel themselves weakened because they just don't have enough calories to continue this uncontrolled cell division. They puts them in a much weaker state. Our healthy cells are, on the other hand, in a very different state. The healthy cell kind of hunker down for the long term battle. So they go into this productive mode. And this is a great balance that you will want to have someone who's battling cancer, that our healthy cells are in a super productive, sheltered mode. And cancer cells don't know what is going on. They are bewildered because there's just not enough calories available. And if you combine that with the cancer treatment, whether it's a radioactive therapy or chemotherapy, You are able to kill off cancer cells more efficiently, while rest of the cells which are in the kill zone are able to protect themselves better, and therefore resulting much better outcome. These days, most doctors who are involved in cancer treatment, they do think actively about how fasting can potentially be leveraged to augment and enhance the efficacy of the treatment. Some of the pioneering work around science of why fasting is so effective is done by Dr. Yoshinori Osumi in Japan. In 1988, he did this study with yeast cells. He noticed when these yeast cells were deprived of continuous nutrition from outside, lot of protective mechanism kicks in. They kind of these cells start to regenerate themselves. So it's almost like a bit of a race for survival starts. The cell which are healthy to begin with start to become stronger, while the cells that were weaker to begin with uh, starts to kill themselves, almost like as if committing suicide. And hence this process is come to known as autophagy. Autophagy is a big part of a fasting mechanism. Now science has still not settled in exactly when autophagy kicks in. Most people will agree that if you are on a 12 to 16-hour fasted state, it results in some autophagy. If you are on longer fast, which can last anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours, autophagy kicks in high gear. Every once in a while, it may be good for you. We'll talk a bit more about prolonged fast, but getting your body in an autophagy state is great way to clean up. It's almost like a oil change for your body, where you are forcing weak, tired cells to clean up, make way for new healthy cells, while the healthier cells get stronger. It's kind of mini survival of the fittest mechanism playing out in your own body. One of the most famous studies around fasting is by Dr. Sachin Panda. He has become quite famous last 14 years for his work in this area. I had the privilege of both visiting him in his office in San Diego and also hosting him on this podcast. In fact, when I was in his office talking to him, I noticed this book on the shelf called The Oldest Cure in the World. I asked him, what is the book all about? And he smiled and he asked me to guess, which I couldn't at that time. And he shared the whole book is about fasting, how fasting has known to be oldest cure in the world. Dr. Sachin's work is primarily in the area of how circadian rhythms impact our health. But as part of his studies, and especially in 2012, uh, he did study involving mouse, where he restricted the eating window for these mouse for 8 hours. And what he realized that if all the calories to these mouse are given in those 8 hours, it doesn't matter what they eat. There is a significant positive impact to their health. You can give them all carb diet, all fat diet, all protein diet, any combination thereof, lot of junks, almost doesn't matter. If they're forced to not eat for 16 hours, which was quite an ordeal because it turns out mouse are also very clever about hiding food wherever they can, even hiding food in their mouth. So the students doing this study had to literally force them to open their mouth at the end of 8 hour window, make sure there is no food hiding in their mouth, and then let them be for 16 hours. Mouse might not have liked that at the moment, but it was all for their good health. And after this study was published, it really woke up the world to this idea of intermittent fasting. Now, what is intermittent fasting? It means that you are eating in a particular window. You can call that a eating window, or the alternate of the time when you are not eating as a fasting window. And from there, this whole concept of intermittent fasting has almost acquired a cult status. Rightly so, because by now there are numerous studies. They are both longevity experts, everybody from Brian Johnson onwards, or people like Dr. Huberman, who has done an extensive podcast on intermittent fasting, to many studies, both in animals and in humans, more importantly, which all bore out the fact that intermittent fasting is not only amazing for our health, but also very much in line with how our biology has evolved to be able to learn how to consume fat for fuel, and very much in line with how we have lived pretty much all our life in our evolutionary history. So today in 2025, as we do this episode, I think we can take this for granted that fasting is not some kind of voodoo science that only our grandparents practice for religious or spiritual reasons. While those impact are also very profound, but we now have so much scientific evidence that fasting does whole host of good things for our body and mind. Hopefully, by now, you are convinced that fasting is this incredible superpower. We know this from our evolutionary history, we know this from our cultural and religious traditions, and we also know this from modern science. But the $1 million question is, so how do I fast? Let me first start by saying it's not easy. In fact, anything we're going to discuss on this podcast, which is a superpower, which allows you to do great things, it's not easy, but it's something you can learn step by step. And as the power of compounding, which you talked about in the past, takes off, things which may not appear that difficult in retrospect will add up to having magical impact on your life. And fasting is definitely one such things. So where do you begin? I think first and foremost, you need to start by just understanding your relationship with food and fasting. Now, most of us, or I'm pretty sure all of us, don't eat 24 hours a day. So, which means all of us are naturally fasting. I'm pretty sure, and I hope you are not eating when you're sleeping, so that at the minimum, you have those 7, 8 hours. Now, you need to first audit your lifestyle around that. Uh, let's assume you're somebody who sleeps at 10 p.m., and there is no shame in sleeping at 10 p.m. I sleep by 9 p.m., but okay, let's be more realistic. Let's assume sleep by 11 p.m. What time do you finish your meal, and not dinner, last meal? Let's assume 9 p.m. So you have 2 hours by the time you hit the bed. Let's hope you stay in bed for 8 hours. So that's, 2 plus 8, 10 hours. So you'll wake up at 7 a.m. And then again, see, when do you have your first calorie? It could be if you have a tea with milk, that counts as calorie, unfortunately. If you have black coffee, then not. So, but when do you first consume a calorie? Let's assume another 2 hours. So 2 plus 8 plus 2. So that's already 12 hours. That's an excellent start. You need to understand that 12 hours of fasting window, which hopefully you already have, is great place to be in. That's a time where your body is not busy digesting food. Body can focus on other things. A lot of repair processes body needs to indulge in. During this time, body is probably consuming some fat for energy, which is great for you. Now, if you want to experiment with fasting, first key idea to focus on is, can you have some distance between your last meal, last calorie intake, and sleep time? All the evidence I have seen is the sweet spot is at least 3 hours. If you can stop eating 3 hours before your bedtime. Why is 3 hour important? Because it takes us 3 to 4 hours to completely clear our stomach. Now, if let's say I stop eating at 7 p.m., I may think my fasting starts at 7 p.m., but unfortunately, that's not the case. The all the undigested food is still in your stomach. Body will slowly start the digestion process. The glucose will keep getting added to your bloodstream. So technical definition of fasting is there glucose in my bloodstream or not? And rest assured that 2 3 hours fasting, there is glucose in the bloodstream. Therefore, you are not in fasted state. So fasting only kicks in 3 hours after you finish eating. So if you can do that, then you will have deep restful sleep. You will also be in a fasted state while you're sleeping. So you can add 1 hour. Then you look at your morning hours. I think the second key trick for increasing fasting window is to see if you can shift your meal time slowly. If you try to do something heroic and say, I'm going to skip my breakfast and going to eat lunch directly, you might be able to pull this off. but it will lead to a lot of mood issues. You may feel cranky, you may get headaches, and that's not very healthy way to do. Uh, a lot of studies shows that it's you can shift your fasting window by at most an hour every week. So the way I'll do, and this, there was a time when I used to have my first calorie at 7 a.m. When I started to learn how to do intermittent fasting, I tried to move that window from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. over a 1 or 2 week window. 1 hour you can get by. If you are feeling you, we get this natural craving at the time that we are used to eating. If you want to change that, you need to you can move it by just through willpower by half an hour, 1 hour. And the good thing is if you manage to do it for week or two, body gets used to this new timing, and then it becomes very easy. So you shift by 1 hour, and then you shift by another hour, and then you can shift by one more hour, and you can have a lot of fun with this process. It's once you get the art of how to slowly delay, just half hour at a time or 1 hour at a time, rewire, recondition your body. After some time, you will notice that if, let's say, used to feel very hungry at 7 a.m., you will not feel hungry anymore because your body will start to be in the ketosis state. You have this continuous supply of calories coming in from inside your body. Not only will you not feel hungry, you will, in fact, you will feel great. These days, I'll just share, my eating window. I have my first meal at 10 a.m., between 10 to 11 a.m., and last meal before 4 p.m. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm already in the 13, 14-hour fasted state, and I feel amazing. I am just bursting with energy. I go to gym in a fasted state. And let me also do, burst this myth that you need to consume some calorie or protein before your workout time. Absolutely no evidence of that. And now I can also speak from personal experience. In fact, I have never felt more energetic in the gym compared to, when I'm in a fasted state. So you can keep shifting your eating window by in 1 hour increments over 5 6 week period. You have to realize that initially when you're trying to retrain your body, it's important to keep yourself hydrated. So have lots of water. If you can have some water with half a lemon, little bit of salt, it will make sure that you have enough electrolytes in your body. The chances of headaches will be lower. You will feel less fatigue until your body gets used to it. Now, how much of a fasting window or eating window, which is what's known as time restricted eating. If you go by all the scientific evidence available, I think anything, let's focus on eating window, anything between 6 hours, which is going to be pretty strict eating window, to up to 12 hours. Almost anything in that range is great for your health. So if you are eating within 6 hours, which is what I do, you have almost 18 hours of fasting window. On the other hand, if you keep 12 hour of eating window, and a lot of people with active social life, probably that's what's manageable, you still have 12-hour fasting window. I think both are good for you. Now, fasting is many permutations. Fasting doesn't mean that you have to strictly practice a particular eating window. Now we are aware of so many different permutations that are available. As long as you are able to have some routine in your daily life or weekly life or monthly life, where at some point body is forced to consume fat for fuel, slowly learns and gets trained or being able to burn fat on demand, you are going to be able to harness the power of fasting. So intermittent fasting, where you have a eating window of 6 to 12 hours, is one way to do it. Some people follow 5-2 diet. What does that mean? That means 5 days you eat normally, and 2 days you are on some kind of calorie restriction. You can be fairly extreme and say, I'm going to only consume 500 calories. Now it's fairly hard, especially hard in the beginning when you're not used to it, but that's one way to do it. You can do Navratri style of fasting, where you can do it once a year, which is also great for you, or you can do every 3-4 months. A lot of people have, Somvar ka vrat or Shanivar ka vrat or whatever, which may suit your cultural preferences, religious preferences. You can do it that way. Or you can do every few weeks you can do complete 24-hour water fast, which means for a 24-hour window you are not consuming any calories but only water. If that goes well for you, at some point you can consider longer fast. For me, my next personal milestone, for me 24-hour fast is fairly easy now. It used to be humongous struggle, and unfortunately a lot of people in the office will be at the receiving end of my irritation, but now I feel in fact more calm at a 24-hour fasted state. But I want to get to 36 hours and then 48 hours and eventually 72 hours. I believe we have so much science supporting the idea of autophagy in longer term fasts that I am motivated to try. But you need to get there in baby steps. I think first and foremost, hopefully, if this episode has convinced you that fasting is something you can consider in your lifestyle, that fasting is potentially a superpower that you can cultivate and become an integral part of who you are. With that conviction, you can start to play with your routine. You can see, like, based on your lifestyle, what time you go to bed today, what time you wake up in the morning, what is easier for you. Let me bust another myth. When I was growing up, I used to hear that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Absolutely nonsense. There is no truth to it. You can choose any fasting window that you want. Now, if you want to be very scientifically precise, what we know that the eating window, the more it is towards the earlier part of the day, it is better. Why is that? Very simple reason that we are obviously more active during the day, and when you are active, we are burning all the blood glucose faster, and therefore we are able to get to fasted state early. Brian Johnson, who was on my podcast and the self-style longevity guru, he eats between, if I'm not mistaken, between 6 a.m. and 12 noon. So he's all done by 12 noon, shuts shop and does not eat anything. So that may be very extreme, probably not for most of us, but that's something you have to play with. You have to really see that, what are the really important social occasions, when do you have meal with other people, uh, you know, generally how do you want your mornings to be, how do you want your evenings to be, when do you want your workout and so on. But there is enormous flexibility. You are in control, you are in power, and once you have clarity, and perhaps with some discussion with your nutritionist, with your trainer, maybe even your doctor, so that you are careful about it. Look, fasting can also be very dangerous if it is not done in a deliberate, guided manner. One should not do any stunts. If you have never fasted, I will not advise you to try a 24-hour fast, a cold start. It may do more damage and also may dampen your enthusiasm about fasting as a protocol. And it's like, when someone wants to run a marathon and have never run, you advise them, you start by just running 100 meters. If that's difficult, do a brisk walk for 100 meters, then go to 200 meters. I think fasting needs to be followed in a similar manner. But the good thing is we have now so much literature available. We will add reference to some amazing books that I've read in preparation for this podcast. There are many online resources available. And then, if you really want guided health, there are a lot of these clinics around the world. And one of the most famous one is Lanzerhof in Germany. It's insane that you pay many $1,000s a day for somebody else to starve you. That's what I guess sometimes luxury in the modern world means. But a lot of celebrities, entrepreneurs, VCs go there and they are put on this 8 to 10 day fast of only, I think, 600-700 calories a day. You are under supervision, you are continuously tested. You lose a lot of weight during that period, but more importantly, you learn the art of fasting. You also learn your relationship with your body and how fasting can potentially be part of your lifestyle. You come out feeling rejuvenated, feeling great. There's another clinic in California which, under medical supervision, can take you through 20 days fasting protocol. In India, we have many Ayurveda inspired clinics, which, while not strictly fasting, but they have this Panchkarma process, which is a limited calorie restriction. which is a very well thought out fasting protocol in some ways. There is Jindal Nature Care in on the outskirts of Bangalore, where they have, again under supervision of medical doctors, different type of fasting protocols which can be tailored to particular condition you might be battling it. So the point is, we have access to a lot of resources. We have access to professionals, both in the wellness space as well as medical doctors. And we have access to these centers that you can figure out based on your enthusiasm and based on your affordability. You can get assistance from any of those clinics. But coming back to where I started, I think my intention in this podcast to bring out ideas which I really believe can be superpower in your life. For me, few things have played that role. I think sleep is one of my superpower. Absolutely, I sleep 7 to 8 hours every day. I never ever compromise. Fasting is something I wanted to have in my life. I struggled with for a long period of time, but finally, I think I'm getting there where I can glimpse the power of fasting. I also understand the science of fasting better, and I also understand the protocol, how to engage and develop fasting as a process in your life slowly, steadily, so that it become integral part of who you are. If you're convinced at this time, I'll suggest you start somewhere, start with baby steps, and just see for yourself what fasting can do, not only for your health, but also for your mental health and clarity. For me, the excitement, from my little experiment with fasting is coming from what is doing to my mind. I feel so much more calm and zen. I feel so much clarity of thought. I feel I'm making better decisions at work. As a result, I have a lot more self control, and all the side benefit to health are obviously amazing. On the closing note, I should also mention that these days longevity has gained a lot of attention. I have done a couple of podcasts with Brian Johnson, with Dr. Marcus. This is something I have tried to study a lot. The single most important thing that comes out from science of longevity is the impact of calorie restriction on long life. If you talk to people who are really deep into science of longevity, they'll tell you that only known method for extending human lifespan is calorie restriction. There are all these fringe clubs on the internet where people get by on as little as 1,000, 1,200 calories. That might translate to very long life, but perhaps not very fulfilling life. But just knowing that there is a strong linkage on practicing calorie restriction and how long you can live. And I think from my perspective, how much better your health span can be. uh, if all of us want shortcuts in life, we want superpowers that enables us to do great things in life. I think fasting is definitely one of those protocols, and we don't need to go very far. We are in the land of India, where fasting has been path for asceticism. Every yogic tradition involves a lot of fasting, and in many ways, the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, he made fasting into a weapon. For a frail 5 feet tall man, he converted fasting into this immense weapon that he used for spiritual cleansing, for mobilizing millions of people, for literally bringing down Britishers to their knees. We covered Gandhi's journey in detail with Ram Guha earlier. But as in preparation for this episode, I was going through his journey. Gandhi did fast anywhere from 5 days to 20 days at different stages of freedom struggle. At some point, to stop the the religious riots that are happening and wreaking so much havoc in the country. But if I have to guess, this is, while it was a great tool for mobilization, but also a very deeply contemplative practice that Gandhi indulged in. He was able to tap into much deeper inner self, find that very strong resolve and charisma that a lot of other people found appealing, and were able to really follow him all the way to India gaining its independence. So, this is an extremely powerful tool. It's probably invented in our country because we have evidence from our epics and from Vedas onwards, we have had a lot of practitioners, a lot of evangelists, and now we have so much science also backing all the claims and all the promise of fasting. So when are you going to start your first fast? At Sparx, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to Sparx on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.